All right, boys, we are back on the GT100 truck. So let's take a look at her. We have a little bit of a time crunch on our hands. So the plan has always been to get the truck ready for paint by the time the weather warms up here in Utah. So we are quickly approaching that time. What do we have left to do? A lot. I want to get all the metal work done, and then we can get all the body panels fitment wise done, which can be a pain in the butt, especially when this is not a factory F100 chassis in any way, shape, or form. So we got to get all the metal work done. We'll kind of go over that. I'd like to start to get all the gaps and the fenders, the cab, all the fitment with the doors, whatnot done. But before that, we have to kind of finalize some of the metal work. So what do we have kind of left, the big pieces with the metal work? One is back here in the box area. You can kind of see we're still open. We've got a lot of the tube structure done. I want to tie the fender wells in. So we kind of started here, tacking it in. We'll seam seal it, cover up these rear tires, just so we don't have any, you know, mud, or not mud generally, but I guess water, debris, whatever come up in here. Probably make a panel to cover this up a little bit. We'll see. But the big thing is patch panel there for the fender well. We need to make one there. You can kind of see I made a plate over here for that patch, and then same over there. We're going to use 16 gauge steel. We'll build a panel there, kind of build a panel to radius the contour of that wheel well, and then we'll see, maybe get into this. This stuff isn't as critical, but I want to get here, seam seal it, get it painted, get everything kind of cleaned up on the inside, and then we have to build the patch panel back here. So a lot of guys kind of been asking, hey, how are we going to do this? Basically, going to cut down this little contoured profiles here so they're flat, and then we'll bend the metal just at a little slight angle so we can run it right down into the structure down here. So that is the plan. That's going to kind of create a lot of space for us. So whether we want to put a sound system back here, some speakers, we want to put a box that's lockable, whatever, we have a lot of options. We're going to run in and run this patch panel down into the floor of the tub for the car. Need to be cognizant of the tubing here. We want to make that clean. All this is going to be covered with a bed floor, but I want to make sure we cut the holes right, lay it in, it's nice and clean. I'm going to have to final weld these tubes. You can kind of see they're just tacked in this 1 3/4 structure that we built the roll cage out of last episode. If you guys haven't checked that out, I'll put a link up here, check it out. We need to final weld all that because when I put this panel in, I'm not going to be able to get to the back sides of these tubes. So we'll get the panel in after we final weld everything. We'll probably fab it up, make sure everything's good, fits really nice. Final weld everything, get those patch panels in. I'm going to build plates here for the box. We'll delete these stake beds. So we've got stake beds here, here, and obviously the two over there. Delete those. What else do we got here on the old girl? Metalwork wise, this is the old gas cap filler behind the seats. We are not doing that anymore. We all know the gas cap is recessed in the tail light. So we'll delete this, build some stuff, use the English wheel over there, kind of radius some metal, and fill that as well. And mainly that's the big stuff for the body work. We did see all of this has been sandblasted. Body's in really good shape. The one issues that we did have, the few issues, were if you look down here, patch panel, that is horrendous. So I don't know, the previous owner made this guy no bueno. So we'll cut this out, make a nice patch panel so we're not gonna have to add filler. And then same here, there's a dent, and you can see you know, there's probably 1/8 of an inch of filler, maybe a little bit more. We're gonna take all that out, pull this dent out. All this stuff is existing filler work, so we'll clean all that up, but really nothing's gonna require a lot of metal work. This will need a new patch, but that should be pretty easy generally. A little bit of finishing stuff with the interior, cleaning up some of the panels we made and whatnot. We need to integrate the HVAC, so I do have a plan up here. Using all the factory HVAC stuff, we're going to be venting through these 2 factory vents up here on the dash. The plan I have for the vents are, I think it's like a 60s Mustang, but these actually fit those vents in the dash perfectly. And then I have some tubing that will run up, so I'm going to modify, where's it at? We'll modify this factory Mustang vent distribution system up here to where the big plenum is kind of just right there in the center. We'll cut down these big arms and everything, and then just run this tubing here into the vents for just the defrost. So the cab is so much smaller, we're not gonna have a bunch of vents everywhere, but whether it's AC heat, it's gonna be blowing through those two vents, and it's a massive system for the size of this cab compared to the Mustang. So I have no doubt it's gonna be an ice box if you want it to be, or you can heat the thing up and defrost if you want it to be also. So that's kind of what we're looking at today. Let's start getting to work on building those patch panels, and maybe some of the patch panels on the bed, definitely the rear bed section. Let's get those patch panels, make sure we tie the cab in there on that rear section, and we'll just keep moving from there. So let's get it. Trim down this panel here, a little eye protection. All right, boys, so quick update. We got the patch panels. We got the back side coated so we don't get rust on them. This is the top side. We'll get it placed in, and then we'll coat all this stuff. So this is the stuff I use for the insulation. It's fire retardant insulation. If you ever pulled one of these new cars apart, they have tons of this foam type insulation throughout them all. So I love using it. Use the fire resistive stuff. It helps with sound deadening, and it helps a lot with even structure, to be honest. So we want to have, these are those patch panels we built. Here's some foam in here I put around, but this stuff gets just rock hard. So we did the wheel well, as you can see in here, tacked everything in. I'm gonna place the little rectangular panels on these two corners. We're gonna spray the foam in. It expands quite a bit. I'm thinking the best way to fill the void, instead of coming up through the wheel well and trying to get it all the way to the back, I'm gonna run a nice little bead of foam in there, lay the panel down on top of it. I'll tack the four corners just to keep it in place, so when that foam expands, it doesn't start to push and make the panel all wonky. Let's get the foam ready. We got the panel painted on this side. The other one is out in the sun with the all the rust coating on the bottom, so we don't get any rust in there. That's gonna dry a little bit. Let's get this side. Once all that's set, we'll tack it in around the whole circumference, and then we're gonna just run seam sealer around all these edges. We'll tape it, run seam sealer through this little panel here, up in here, and then same thing down here through all these tacks in the panel we have in there. So that will tie up a lot of this main structure that I'm using the 16 gauge stuff with. Do that, and then we'll maybe look at the back. All right, boys, quick update. We have wheel well here, patch panel there, wheel well here, patch panel there. Everything's tacked in place. We have the foam insulation in. It's still kind of expanding. You can kind of see it's still oozing out. I want to make sure, sorry, we've got cars. So I want to make sure all that is completely cured before we seam seal and paint and do everything. So we're working on the last big metal patch panel up here in the front, which is tying that cab into the floor pan section back here. So I kind of did a cardboard template, fit it in, made some recessions for wiring on either side in the middle, and then also the tube up top. So kind of can be complex a little bit just because the angled tube going in sideways. Kind of made a hole, taped off the circle with some tape. We'll mark it with marker to kind of fit the contours, and then cut our piece of metal down to fit that, and creep up on it, and make sure it fits nice and tight so we can weld her in the bottom, weld her in the top. When we weld it in the top, I'm gonna cut slits in all of these little recessions on this styling here on the front bed support piece, so I can actually have a flat panel down here and it's not, you know, concaved. We'll flatten that out. So I do have a flat butting surface for this sheet of metal. Again, we'll do 16 gauge, run that in. So we got the 16 gauge piece over here. We'll kind of cut to fit. We'll put that cardboard template on it and then start just kind of whittling away at it, get it to fit. It's generally how I like to do it so I don't overcut and then have to fill holes. That can be hard though when you're kind of undercutting your stuff, because then you can't get the metal piece in there. It's too big, especially when you've got tubing and a bunch of angles and circumferences and things like that. So either way, we'll try to pull out that cardboard template, not jack it up, get it placed on here on our actual metal sheet, and see if we can't scribe it out and clean it up a little bit, and then we'll get it in there. And then we'll also do the filler cap fill here, which is kind of what we worked here. Put a little radius on it here. So I got people weed eating next door, so let's get it. All right, boys, let's take a look at what we got. So we've got some patch panels in. Got our patch panel here, over there, the wheel well patch panel, this wheel patch panel, seam sealed everything and painted it. Ran out of seam sealer and we got this patch panel here. Once we get some more seam sealer, we'll seal that up, paint it, get all this old paint off of it. We did a panel down here to kind of cap this off again, seam seal. We'll paint all this. We final welded our 1 3/4 DOM 120 wall. We also got all this stuff, obviously. So pretty good progress on that. Filled the old fuel filler. We did the stake beds on the 4 corners. And I am whooped. So I got to clean the garage. We're kind of in a time crunch. We've got a date for the upholstery shop. And I want to get this thing all one color. So we need to epoxy primer the whole body so it's all one color. It's a lot easier to do body work when it's all one color. So before that, we have to make sure all these panel fitments and gaps and everything are good. Same with the dash and the interior. So there's some more finish work, kind of cleaning everything up so the upholsterer can wrap the leather on there and everything looks good and they're able to wrap and get all the seams right. So we're gonna final weld in the dash, get all the gaps, everything perfect, transition with our 2 gauges down there, make sure everything is good for the upholsterer to kind of get after it. Before it goes to him though, like I said, I want to epoxy primer and start doing body work. Before we do that, we got to do panel gaps. So panel gaps can be a huge pain in the butt. So we got that stuff coming up. The dash also, gauge cluster, we're gonna cut this down. I'm going to get a carbon fiber insert here and kind of integrate these modern gauges into this old truck dash. Reason being, I've got a bunch of controls through the dash, like line lock, launch control, steering control, a bunch of stuff is in the dash. So we obviously want to retain all that stuff. So made good progress here the last few days. That's what's going to be coming up. We do have, the body's in pretty good shape. I'm going to get rid of all this old bodywork stuff. I'm kind of just grinding it out like I did here and down there. I'm going to get all that stuff out. The only real issue with the truck, so down here, really shoddy patch panel. We'll cut this out, put a nice patch in, all metal, smooth it down, make it look good. There's a lot of filler in the door. We're going to take all this out, pull it out, and just so we're using really minimal amounts of filler, and then we're going to get all these gaps. So best way I like to do gaps, I'll get the hood on, make sure the hood fits the cowl, then we go to the fenders, and then we're going to go to the doors. So this is obviously not on an F100 chassis. It's a little trickier. I got to make sure my heights on my fenders and everything looks good. So we'll get to that, but a lot of good stuff coming up. We are going to get this thing painted this summer, and we have upholstery in July, first week in July, I believe. So we're gonna get this stuff done, start hammering away at it, and get a lot of stuff completed in June. So we're ready for upholstery, and then we're gonna paint it after that. So as always, if you like what you're seeing, like, subscribe, helps the channel out a lot, and God bless and long live hot rodding.